Welcome, everyone. Look, this one's really simple, but everyone finds a passion, right, in life and in their business and in what we do. And my passion is helping people create cash flow so that we can choose to slow down at work one day or be forced to because of we're just downsized or the market shifts or an illness comes up, right? Like Janet was just talking about. Um, and to be ready for that. So I have a unique perspective on the real estate side because I sit in front of across the desk from people all the time. And very, very often I'll ask a couple who are, say, 50 years old, hey, how long do you plan on being in this house? Because that helps structure the financing the right way. Are we going to do a shorter term, longer term, whatever? And so often the answer is, oh, I mean, we're about to turn 50. We're done. I mean, this is it. We're gonna die in this. This is our last one, and then we're done. And the attitude is pervasive through the entire conversation of, I mean, we're 50, we're done now. And I'm like, you're 50. You got at least 30 more years. You got time. Let's go. And let's do stuff. And you have assets. You have oftentimes real estate assets. Oftentimes you have, a 401k, an IRA, some investments. And all the time you have your lived experience, right? Um, Kierkegaard's my favorite philosopher, talks a lot about the lived experience. And you have that, and you have wisdom. You have a lot to bring to the table. You have a lot of assets. Some are financial, some are not, but there are a lot of assets. So let's use them and accelerate them to get to where we need to be. So I threw this slide in this morning because I heard this quote yesterday and I really liked it. It kind of resonated with me. It said, you are commanded to go do something productive with your life, to go give, to go produce, and to risk, and then to go sow into other people. That's the biblical ideal that's made the world a profoundly better place. And that was Charlie Kirk. And I'm so sad of what happened yesterday. It's a sad day all around because it's the anniversary of 9/11 and his death yesterday. And feel so bad for his wife and children. And I'm sure we all do. Um, yeah, just what a terrible thing. But what a profound statement. I don't know Charlie Kirk. He wasn't, I'm not his audience, right? His audience was college kids teaching them civics and the Republic and to think critically and expand their thinking. I think he moved the needle on that. Um, but I really like that. We're commanded to go do something productive with our life. So go give, produce, and risk. So I say all that to say, I intro it that way to say, here's the problem. The problem is many, many people, again, when I do home loans, I see the whole financial picture, right? It's kind of right there. And I see many people who have worked, you know, 30 years of their life and saved in a 401k and they have 250 to $700,000 in their 401k. And they're proud of that. And they should be because it's an accomplishment. But the problem is a financial planner, if they sat down with him, would be like, oh, well, you need 2.4 million. Because at the 4% rule, if you take out so much, it'll last your whole lifetime, and you can live the lifestyle that you have now. And they're like, I have $500,000 now, and you're saying I need 2 million more? I need 5 times this amount? How am I going to get there? And so my thing is that's discouraging for a lot of us. It just is. For a lot of 45 to 65-year-olds, you say, well, I know you're 1/5 of the way there, so keep on going. And they're like, it's been 30 years. Well, how am I going to keep going? And they can't. Mathematically, it's tough to get there. But what really is necessary is not $2.4 million in an account somewhere. What's really necessary is if your lifestyle is based on $100,000 today, to maintain the lifestyle and have cash flow of $100,000, right? And it's $8,300 a month. And if you break it down like that, it's like, oh, well, I can probably get to $8,300 a month. $2.4 million, tough. $8,300, easier. So let's focus on creating cash flow to get there. And the reason for that is, and the reason for real estate is, back in 1990, a dollar bought a dollar's worth of stuff. Today, it takes about $2.47 to buy a dollar's worth of stuff. Well, you can't see my mouse, can you? Um, and look at what's happened since 2020. That has accelerated. In other words, inflation has accelerated. Or put another way, not really inflation, but the erosion of the dollar or the debasement of our currency has accelerated. Why? Because what happened in 2020? Well, the cerveza sickness. We all heard about it and we all stayed home for a while, 2 years, and the government printed a bunch of money. Now we're $37 trillion in debt here in the US, and rates aren't coming down. Now, next week, Powell might cut rates by a quarter point, and that'll help repay our debt, but it's not going to do the trick. So the Congressional Budget Office says our debasement of currency or the printing of money will accelerate by another 30% over the next 10 years by 2035. So if we have 30% more money in circulation by 2035 than we have today, what do you think that does to inflation? Well, it goes up by 30%. Or the debasement of the currency accelerates, and those who have assets win, and those who don't lose. And one way to think about it, everyone says, and I'll get to this in a future slide, but everyone says, well, home prices just keep on going up so fast. Well, do they? Or is the debasement of the currency going up so fast or going down so fast, the currency? I would argue the latter, because I would argue a land with a house on it is worth about the same today as it was in 1990. The problem is the dollars aren't worth as much. So it takes more dollars to buy that same piece of land with a house on it. It just does. So what we want to do is not have money in dollars that are being debased, right? Since 1971, right? We came off the gold standard. Nixon took us off the gold standard. And all of a sudden, instead of a dollar backed by something real, some real tangible asset, we have fiat currency. And so long as we have fiat currency and we keep printing more and more of it, it's going to take more of those dollars to buy real assets. So what we want to do is focus on real assets. So the reality today, it's not great, but it's simple. And it's the reality for a lot of us, for sure. But it's also the reality for a lot of our clients, right? And that is, most people in their 50s rely on a paycheck. They just do. What happens, that's all good because we're probably earning more in our 50s. Most of us earn more in our 50s than we did in our 30s, partly because wages went up, partly because home prices went up, right? And so if we're selling homes in the same amount, the price is higher, so we're earning more, etc. But think of your clients. If they're in their 50s and they're paid, you know, someone in their 30s comes in and they're doing 80% as good as someone in their 50s, but someone in their 50s is being paid twice as much as someone in their 30s, and it's time to downsize. Like right now, jobs numbers are not looking great, right, over the last couple months, and it's time to downsize. What's going to happen? Well, most likely, um, the one in the 50s gets let go because it's a bigger cost savings. So relying on one income is difficult at best right now. 401ks, generally speaking, are not enough for most people, right? Most people have a nice little 401k, but it's not going to be enough to uh, to make it in retirement. It's just not. It's not going to keep them going until we're 95 years old. And that's what I mean by that. So, and then everything simply costs more. And we've all seen it. We've got stories and stories that we can see, right? Um, that we can share. Sorry. So real estate income can replace our income, and that's the whole goal, to replace our income over time. And it can be single family homes, it can be multifamily, it can be industrial that's growing as an asset class. It can be what do you call them, data centers, which is going to keep on growing with AI. It can be anything, but I'm just going to talk about single family right now because it's simple and people understand it. Okay. The objection, though, that I get when I talk to people about, well, start with buying investment property, and over time you will get to a point where you can replace your income. I get two objections. The first one is, I mean, prices are way too high and rates are high, right? And what that really means is they look at a property and the first year's cash flow looks pretty slim, pretty weak. And I'll show you an example of that coming up in just a moment. However, what they don't realize, and this is where I show this, visually, is that the mortgage rate is fixed. The costs around that property are largely fixed. We know property taxes and insurance will go up a little bit over time, but they're largely fixed. But rents are not. Rents go up with inflation. If you're running it like a business, rents track with inflation and they keep going up every single year. And so today's kind of bad deal turns into a big win over time. This is a longer term prospect. So here's an example. And this is something I prepared for someone who was buying up in Colombia. Um, their plan was to hold it for several years. They have two kids going to college, one after another, right? And so they're going to be 8 to 10 years. And so it was a $250,000 property that would rent for $2,100 per month. Oops. That would rent for $2,100 per month. After expenses, principal and interest, homeowners insurance, property taxes, and maintenance expenses, because I always set aside for that, and you should, and vacancy, by the way, their cash flow is about $250 per month. And the reaction was probably what your reaction would be is like, I don't know if that's worth it. I mean, that's not enough. And sometimes it's $110 a month when I do these analyses. And it's like, that's not enough to worry about. That won't make a difference. And I get it, except over time, there's more numbers involved, right? So if you look here, and I don't know if you can see my mouse moving. On one screen I do, on the other I don't. So if you can't, I'll verbally follow along as best I can. If you can, that's even better. So estimated cash flow after principal and interest, um, property taxes and insurance, maintenance costs. The cash flow is about $3,000, $250 a month times 12, $3,000 for the first year. I keep doing that. Which is about 5.4% cash on cash return. Not great. It's not, you're going to have to do a bunch of those to retire, and you could probably do something better elsewhere until you start adding time and letting it compound, right? So if rents keep going up 4% per year, all of a sudden by year 10, I'll just skip to the end. By year 10, it's not $3,000 a year, it's $12,000 a year, right? $1,000 a month. Remember, our goal is $8,300 a month. So that kind of looks a lot like we have to do 10 of these. And then all of a sudden, we've got our $100,000 a year income after expenses that we can live off of. But it doesn't stop there because we also have appreciation. The home's going up. I think this was Lexington County. It's estimated, forecasted rather, properties to go up at 3.33% per year. So that's an added $96,000. And then the tenant is paying down the mortgage for you, right? Amortization. And that's an added $28,000. So what's all that look like? Here's what it looks like. It looks like this. The total return on investment is, well, the total gross revenue with appreciation thrown in is $387,000. Not terrible for a $50,000 investment, but you do have expenses. Interest, property taxes, maintenance, closing costs to get in, closing costs to sell, because I'm taking into account you have to pay an agent on the other side of the deal to sell it eventually. So your profit is $174,000. Remember, on a 20% down $50,000 investment, so your return is 16.2%. Pretty good. S&P 500, they always quote returns about 10% per year on average over the last 50 years, I think it is, etc. But there's expenses there. This already takes into account the large part of the expenses, and you're better off. And it's a better investment. And it's tangible. It's something you can drive by and see, and it's bricks and windows, and you're like, oh yeah, the roof looks good. It survived the storm. We're good. So the long-term payoff looks like this. Cash flow is 77,000 over that 10-year period. Positive free cash flow, 77,000. The appreciation is 97,000, loan pay down 28,000. So the total is $174,000 profit on $50,000 invested. That's a return on investment of 350% or just shy of it, which is a pretty good investment. But again, that's something that at first glance didn't look great. It just looked okay. But when you say, we know that debasement of the currency or inflation will continue into the future because we're in a debt-driven economy and it has to, well, then the real asset looks better and better and better compared to that debasement of the currency. And your cash flow looks better. So here, put another way, and I'll just highlight this real quickly. Case-Shiller is, the gold standard of tracking home prices, right? And when the 20 city index that they track says, well, some home prices are going down. Tampa's been going down, San Francisco, Dallas, and even things like Miami a little bit. It's settling. I say it's finding an equilibrium still because those markets were so hot and ridiculous during, when rates were 3%, that they didn't know how to find a price. There was no real comp. And and now they're finding that quickly. A lot of cities already have, and they're going up in value, even this year, where the news would have you say everything's about to crash. It's not. So here's what it looks like in a year. It looks like in a 20 city index, a 2% return, right? And over 5 years, that's a 50% return. It's been 50% return and is expected to be something very similar to that going forward, and an 88% return over 10 years. So that's just kind of on a national look at buying. And if you go nationwide, not just the 20 city index, it's even better than that. Meaning there might be some smaller markets that might be doing even better. Okay, so the other objection, I said there were two. One is prices are too high and rates are too high. The other objection I hear to buying real estate is I don't have the money. So what do you do there? Well, if you don't have the 20% down payment to start times 10 to start buying these properties and holding them as rentals, maybe like you can do a couple things. One is double down on your own business because we're all in a business, thankfully, where there is no limit. I mean, if we want to make 100,000 a year, it's fairly simple. If we want to make $1 million a year, it's not as simple, but it's not very complicated either. It just means do 10 times as much. And we can. So double down on your business is one, but also if you want to do it with properties, helping you into more properties, we can start with a fix and flip. And that's a simple, most of you probably know what that is. Some of you may not. So I'll explain it in simple terms and then pull Mitch in real quick if I can to help out. So a fix and flip is short-term money. It's money to purchase the property and rehab the property. It's the cost to purchase plus the cost of rehab minus the down payment. Since it's short term, it's more expensive. You're not going to get fix and flip loans, short term loans, hard money, if you will. And you're not going to find it at 6.5% interest because the people lending the money to you, they want a return that's reasonable, not exorbitant, but reasonable. So, and generally speaking, it's, well, our fix and flip money is 11.49%, call it 11.5%, and 2 to 3 points up front, right? 11.5% and 2 to 3 points. That's what we lend it at. And I know there's some higher, I don't think there's many lower than that. So what do you do with the fix and flip loans? Well, you fix up a property, put it on the market for the new market value all fixed up, and resell it and take those proceeds and sock that away and stack cash, and that's your down payments for the long-term holds. That's one way to do it. The other way is fix the property up. It's worth a lot more. You do the Burr method. I didn't put down the slide, but the Burr is buy, renovate, refinance. I think it might be skipping an R. Buy, renovate, refinance. I'm skipping an R and repeat. But basically, it's just buy it, fix it up. Oh, whatever, and repeat it. And keep doing that so you could hold the property by refinancing it out of the short-term hard money, which is a high interest rate, to a 30-year fixed rate, either Fannie Mae or DSCR. If you're self-employed and you write everything off on taxes and don't qualify for Fannie Mae, we do a DSCR loan, or yeah, debt service coverage ratio. Property takes care of itself. And you can hold it that way. But what I'm talking about here is true flips. Put it back on the market, right? The last one we sold, my wife and I, that's our side hustle. And the last one that we sold was a couple months ago, and that was it did okay. It wasn't a home run, but we used hard money. We bought the property, we fixed it up, we flipped it, and we knew it was tight going in, but we made about $25,000. It wasn't great, but it's $25,000 that then can set aside for the next purchase. And this one that we're doing now, we're about to put a flip on the market tomorrow. They're just wrapping it up today and tomorrow morning, all the rehab, and it looks great, by the way. And we'll make somewhere between 40 and 50,000 on that when it's all said and done. And so that's, you know property better than I do. And because you're in the market, I think this is a great strategy for everyone on this call because you know real estate. So anyway, you reinvest the profits into buy and hold rentals and use the active income to build passive income, which is not really passive because it's property and property is never truly passive. But it is a little less so than some of the others. Then look, if you want truly passive, you buy the S&P 500 and sit and wait. But if you want something like this with a higher return, you can buy investment property and it's not active income like you're used to. So I'm going to get out of this just for a second. Mitch, do you mind introducing yourself and talking about the um, your hard money that you do? Because Mitch is a hard money lender.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Hey, folks, my name is Mitch Messer. I would actually consider myself to be a private lender, and I can make the distinction in a minute. But what you just described, Jim, is exactly what I do. I help folks who are looking to uh, buy, fix, flip, or buy, fix, rent, who don't have the all the funds that they need to complete the transaction, but they found a great deal, and it's such a great deal that there's enough room in there for them to cover the to service the debt to a lender like myself and still make a decent amount of money on the back end. I typically, just in the interest of making the math easy, I'll use 12% as the interest rate because that means it's a percent a month. So if you're borrowing $100,000, you'd be making $1,000 payment per month, interest only, to a lender like me. And so if you needed that money for 5 months, 6 months, you're looking at $5,000 or $6,000 in additional expense to complete a deal, which is for most deals, if you're making 25, 30, 40, $50,000, there's enough room there on the back end to justify that kind of deal. And for those kinds of opportunities, there is effectively an unlimited supply of money because there are a ton of people out there who are looking to put their funds to work and only want to find great operators who have found great deals so they can sit back and let someone else use their money to do all the hard work and they can make 12% and they're happy and you're happy. And so my goal is to try to get these relationships going and move forward. And that's the one distinction that I'll make between what we do and what hard money lenders do. Hard money lenders are in the business of lending, and that is they operate. They're not quite banks, but they're closer to banks than us. We are individuals who have funds that we want to put to work, but we're not banks. We're Joe, we're Mary, we're Bob, and so you have the opportunity to build a relationship with these people that you don't typically get with hard money, and you certainly don't get with a bank. And the other thing is that we can typically operate faster than a hard money lender or a bank. Hard money might take 3 or 4 weeks to close. A bank may take a month. We've closed as fast as 4 days. It's not fun. I wouldn't want to do it every week, but if the situation requires it, we can definitely get that done. So, the if you want the relationship, if you want the speed, and if you want what I would call transparency of fees, which is another thing we can get into later, then private lending is, I think, a bigger advantage. But your overarching point is exactly right. That there are people out there who live to fund other people's real estate deals. And if we can find folks who can consistently find opportunities below market, put a little work into them, and then flip them, or put work into them, put a tenant in them. The R that you were missing was rehab. Uh, put a tenant in them and then refinance it to long-term financing and pay the lender off, then they would happily do those deals. I would happily do those deals 10 times a month. And my challenge is finding people who will willingly go out and do that work. But if I can find people like that, then we would fund everything you've got for like the next 15, 20 years because it serves our needs and it serves your needs. Everybody wins.
So yeah, I think that's awesome. So Mitch, can you put your contact information in the chat?
Sure, I
So
absolutely will.
anyone who wants to reach out to Mitch, what I've found about Mitch is he's very quick with a yes and it stays a yes, or very quick with a no if it's not a project that they can do. And either way is fine because quick is, it's money loves speed, right? Either way is fine. Um, all right. And if anyone has any questions for Mitch, feel free to ask him right now, or we can do it at the end with questions. All right. We're going to do it at the end. Um, I might not have control here again. Okay. So that's fix and flip. Oh, by the way, our hard money is CFS Go. I put it in the chat, so you've got that. It's anyway, it's there. You can reach out to me, but Mitch is a great resource, not only for the fund, and I'm calling it hard money, private money, um, not only for the funds to do a fix and flip, but also for your vast experience. And there's a lot to be said for that too. So this slide I put in because I really like it. A friend of mine who many of you may know here in town, Russ Scheider, is an investor here in town. He's been investing for years and he's a great guy. He came up with this. I stole it from him. Okay, I borrowed it from him. He said, look, everyone needs in real estate short-term money, medium-term money, and their long-term money. And the short-term money is your earned income, right? You go out and sell a house, you get a commission check, everyone's happy, and you're good. The medium term money is your fix and flip, right? It's usually 3 to 9 months, whatever it is, to get in and back out. Three would be quick, but 6 to 9, whatever it is. That's your medium term money. And then your long term money is your buy and hold, right? And you really should have a mix of all three going on if you're in real estate. Because the buy and hold stuff doesn't pay your bills today, like we just saw, but 10 years from now, it can really go a long way toward paying bills. Um, so your roadmap is really simple. Acquire your first rental or flip and then rental. And, keep adding properties I say 1 to 2 years. That's why I say to most investors, you're in the business. You see property every day. It's your expertise, right? It's not theory for you. It's what you do every day. You're in and out of properties. You're seeing them. You're seeing the condition. So you could easily do a couple a year, and that adds up really quickly. And and then you just stack the profits. You buy and hold, and within 5 to 10 years, not 10 to 15 in your cases, you can oftentimes replace or at least get enough income going that you can slow down if you choose to. And I think at some point, look, real estate's a grind. I mean, lending's a grind and real estate's a grind. It just is. And at some point, we're probably all going to choose to, if we can, slow down a little bit. We may not get out of it, may keep doing it for friends and family, but maybe it's not the nose to the grind wheel. Is that what it says? Anyway, maybe it's not the same intensity as what we're used to. And we have that choice if we start today and start building up a rental portfolio. So my take is don't wait for the perfect time. You have, because there is no perfect time. You know, there's this. Today is, well, 2008 was a perfect time, but everyone was afraid to do something in 2008 and 9 and 10, except for the big players, and they got very wealthy pretty quickly. The best time besides, 15 years ago, probably today. So just start. You can't go wrong if you buy and hold over time, the right property. and use your real estate expertise. And if I can help create a plan, well, I'm sure Mitch would do the same thing. If he can help create a plan, I think we're both available to do that, to have a conversation if you want. And so that's me. I know there's probably questions, and I know there's things on this that I left out, like how do you locate the properties? How do you find them? I'm assuming that most of you know that, but if I'm assuming that and I'm assuming wrong, then let's talk about it. So, yeah, what questions, comments do you guys have, if any?
I have a comment. I'm a little nervous about not having a GC in my hip pocket
Yep.
to do, and you know what I'm buying, I won't really know until I get in the house what needs to be done.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, when I get started and I start all the resources that I have available to me, and I find out that most of these people are too busy to mess with these little small projects. Da, 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 da. I mean, has anybody like encountered like real problems with getting production done in a timely manner? Because it seems to be harder and harder to find workers on the fly.
Yeah, there I can help. I can introduce you to a couple that I've been using and they're excellent. So the
Great.
way I've found that it works the best, because you're right, you walk through a property, you don't know exactly what needs to be done. And there's always a surprise. Every property has a surprise. So I
Mhm.
plan for that, right? The last property I did, the surprise was, oh, surprise, there's a colony of rats living in the ductwork. Bummer. Didn't realize that. This one, the surprise was they said they hit a wall and broke the drywall with a hammer and everything. And I looked at it and was like, I don't know. Surprise, it's full of termites. There's a
Wow.
surprise in every property. But what I do with the contractor, and I have a great contractor I can introduce you to. He recommended, and it was his recommendation, get a home inspection like you normally would. And then once you get the home inspection, just check off all the things that I'm going to be doing and leave off the things that you know don't matter and hand it to me. I'll give you a price and a time and I'll get it done. And I literally, generally speaking, go to a property that we pick up for a flip about 3 times. I ended up going five because my wife is like, we should go by and see that again. And so we ended up going five. But it's normally would take 3 times, maybe. One
That's
time
good.
walking through with him, whatever. And what I will tell you is this also. If he says, we're taking the property over today, starting work today, it's September, we'll be done November 15th, plan on December 15th. Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
And it might even be December 30th because there's always delays. There's the county comes in and says, well, you needed a permit for this, whatever it is, right? And he gets
Mhm.
permits, but he missed one and the county caught it.
Mhm.
And it was a delay. It's just stuff. But yeah, get a good contractor and just trust them to it. And it doesn't take much of your time at all.
Okay.
He does a great job. Willis is the guy's name who I'm thinking of. I've got a few, but Willis is the guy's name.
Great. That's very helpful.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, sure. Jump in, anyone else who has, oh, Mitch, go ahead.
I just wanted to make an observation, and that was that, especially right now, from a demographic standpoint, this is an interesting and I would say auspicious time to be buying deals because you've got this big cohort of baby boomers who are, um, in many cases, aging out of their rental portfolios. We're seeing this a lot. You've got people who have had rental portfolios for the last 20, 30 years, and they've been landlords for that long. If you've ever been a landlord for even a year, you know that 30 years of landlording is a whole lot. And they're getting to a point where they're done. They don't want to do this anymore, and they're prepared to sell that portfolio to someone else and sit on the beach and drink mai tais. And so for those folks who are open to selling, who have a portfolio, they are prime candidates for my favorite thing in the world, which is seller financing. Because if they sell that portfolio for cash, they're going to get whacked by the IRS. A far better solution for a lot of those folks is to sell it with seller financing. They become the bank. They accept a reasonable down payment and monthly payments over the next however long you want it, 10, 15, 20 years. And it's a win for them. It's a huge win for the buyer. And so you can, in some cases, get into these deals without using a ton of anyone's money, private money, hard money, whatever, because if the seller is willing to finance it and let you pay 10% down and make payments going forward, and you can fix it fast and put a tenant in it and hold it long term, then you've got someone paying your mortgage effectively, and you're typically getting better rates than you would from a bank. You're certainly getting better terms. And so, for a variety of reasons, seller financing is a huge, huge thing. But the reality is that right now we have a bunch of people who are transitioning those assets into the hands of the next generation, and it's happening on a large, large scale. And so I encourage people. You've got a lot of agents on the call, so they're probably talking to a lot of these folks who are selling. It, in my opinion, is a tremendous opportunity to do these kinds of interesting deals because buying that property, that portfolio for cash is the simplest thing to do, but it's not the best thing for any party. It's not the best thing for the buyer, it's not the best thing for the seller. And so, I, if you're thinking with your investor hat on, there's an opportunity to get deals done here that should be passed up. I think every time someone buys a cash where there could have been seller financing, an angel probably cries someplace or loses their wings or whatever the appropriate metaphor is. But those deals should be should be offered, and that pitch should be made. Hey, here's a cash offer, but here's also this much better terms offer that you should consider, Mr. Seller. And if you can make those deals happen, then it's magic because you're basically creating opportunity and equity out of thin air, and who doesn't love that?
So every time a seller finances, an angel gets his wings.
There you go. There you go. Um, and in places where I mean, again, as you know, Jim, we got our start in Georgia. Georgia's a wonderful state for doing seller financing because I could reassure the seller, hey, look, if I don't pay you, you can foreclose on me, take the property back, keep my down payment, and actually make more money than if I honored my promises and paid you on time. So it's an easy sell. And you have a hard time selling this in New York or California because things go sideways. It takes them a year to get the property back. But in the South, in the Carolinas, in Texas, in Georgia, seller financing is definitely a thing, and it's a super powerful thing. So I would encourage people to keep their eyes out for those kinds of deals because it benefits all parties, and it's a great way for you to get in without requiring a ton of money. I say this even as a private lender. If you can get into a deal where you don't have to borrow any money, you can use the seller's funding to get the deal done, then by all means, go do that.
And I'm all for people not borrowing money. I'm
Yeah,
just kidding. I
yeah.
like people borrowing money, but no, that's a great strategy. The other strategy that I think is a great play for realtors, especially, is to do mailers to people who have liens on the property, whether it be, I don't know, a tax lien, an HOA lien, a big one, whatever. Because generally speaking, what I've found is they, if they have a lien on the property they can't pay, then they also haven't been able to maintain the property sufficiently for a long period of time. And so the property is in disrepair. And they may be about to or already getting behind on the mortgage. So they realize they're just in over their head and they have to get out. So you can help them. And you can help and I would go into it like this as a real I'm not a realtor, obviously, I'm a lender. But if I were, I'd go into it. And I know realtor friends who do this on a regular basis. They go into it, the listing appointment saying, look, we see the condition of the property. It's going to take a bunch of money to get it ready for the market to really get top dollar. Are you prepared to do that? No, I don't have any money. Okay, great. So we have two options. I'll make you a cash deal if you want and just make it simple and I'll buy the property. It won't be as much as you're going to get on the market, but it's simple and you're out and you don't have to worry about it. Or I can put it on the market as is and we'll get you probably a little bit more and you get more cash to walk away with, but it's more hassle and whatever, but you won't get as much as you would if you fixed it up. So it's a win-win either way. You get a great property at a great price. They get some money to walk away and they keep their dignity because they're not on the market with the neighbors like, well, you're selling, you didn't fix the fence and it's falling, whatever. And or you get a nice listing where they get a little more money than you would offer, and the buyer gets a deal because the buyer comes in and says, I can fix this stuff. I'm good. And they get some instant equity. So either way, you get a listing or you get a property, and it's a win-win. But I like the tired landlord thing, Mitch, a lot. There are a lot of tired landlords who did keep up the properties for years, but now 20 some years later, they're like, they just haven't. And they realize it's time to just dump them. I've got the cash flow I needed. I'm good. And yeah, they're willing to do some deals.
And they're already predisposed to accepting payments over time because that's what they were doing as landlords.
Yeah.
Except now, instead of accepting payments from a tenant, they're getting payments from me as a borrower. And the tenant doesn't pay you on time, you have to take them to court, file eviction, and deal with that. And if the borrower doesn't pay you on time, you can foreclose and take the property back. And it's a lot less hassle, and you're a lot more secured. I did want to mention just briefly, I did put my contact information in the chat, but I specifically wanted to mention that I have a community specifically focused on pretty much two parties. People thinking about doing real estate investing or doing real estate investing stuff, and people who are looking to fund people who have real estate aspirations. And the purpose of the community was to give people a safe environment to have frank, blunt conversations about money, how it works, how it doesn't work, try to avoid some of the scammers out there because they're definitely out there, unfortunately, and also kind of to understand how lenders think and operate and what you need to do to be in place to prepare yourself to qualify for private money. It's called Unfundable AF, uh, Unfundable as fudge, if you will. And for anyone that's on this call, Jim is in the community. For anyone on this call, I will happily invite them in. If you go straight to the site, it'll ask you for money. Come through me. I'll send you an email invitation and I can get you in at no cost for as long as you think it'll be valuable to you. If you don't think it's valuable to you, then I'm not going to force anybody to do it. But it is a great place to interact with other people who are, in some cases, just getting started. In some cases, people who have been doing this for decades, like me. And we just want to create opportunities for people to partner and do more deals, and everybody wins in a situation like that. The lenders win, the borrowers win, and we share notes about how are you finding contractors, or if you're a lender, how are you protecting yourself. So I don't want to belabor it, but if you're interested in how private money and real estate investing kind of interact, I would love for you to take a look at what we've done and see if there's a way for it to work for you. And I can do it in a way that won't cost you anything.
Yeah, Mitch is the real deal. That his school community is active and the real deal. I mean, it's worth your time because, a lot of times, Mitch, you're in there personally and answering questions, and that's worth a ton because of your experience in real estate.
Because I started my life as an investor, now as a real estate and as a lender, I think like an investor. That's what I am. And but I will say this, that I have been using private money almost since the beginning. And so I've been on both sides of the table. I've been a borrower, I've been a lender, and I'm intrigued by how people get up to speed on this stuff. But everybody has something to offer. No matter what your experience level is, I would love to get more agents and brokers in my network because you guys know where all the skeletons are buried and all the opportunities are. And there are ways that we can help each other make money. And if we can do that, why not? Why not do it?
Awesome. Any other questions that anyone has? And we'll wrap up in just a second unless there are any others. So, what I would ask is that you take something away from this, and the takeaway is action, right? Everyone, it's easy to gather information and plan and wish and one day and maybe and wait for the right time. There's never a perfect time. It just doesn't exist. We're wrapping up a flip right now frantically so that we can go to southern Spain and start riding bikes and not worry about it. There's never a perfect time for anything. But I would just ask, have a bias to action. That's why you're in real estate, because you do have a bias to action, and use your expertise to your advantage to say, let's grow the business, but let's also grow this cash flow set of assets so that one day, if you're like, you know what, the grind is a grind, and I don't want to do that anymore. I'd rather cycle in southern Spain this month, then you can, because you've got the cash flow to back it up and you have options. We've all seen, and I'll end with this. You've seen and I've seen many, many people who are 75, 85 years old, done extremely well their entire life. Were a professional, saved money, did everything right. And now they just can't hang on to the house anymore because the property taxes went up, because their expenses went up, their medications came in, their whatever, or the flip we're doing now. The brother is sick, her brother's sick. He came to live with her, and she is giving a bunch of her money to him. As she is great, that's awesome, but just didn't have enough then to keep up with the house because the only income is a small pension and Social Security. And if that's the only income, it's not going to get us through. It's just not. We all know that. So, what's the best time to start creating more cash flowing assets and accelerator assets? Probably 15 years ago. It just was. But the next best time is probably right now. And so I would encourage you just to start with that and go pick up a property, whether it's your first flip or another flip or another buy and hold property, because they do add up over time. And it's a bigger, it's a much easier mountain to scale to get to $8,300 a month. That's always my target, is how do you get to $100,000 a year free cash flow? It's a much easier mountain to scale than your financial planner saying, well, you got to get to 2.4 million in assets under management. And you're like, how am I going to get there? So I would encourage that. Thanks, guys. If I can do anything for you, let me know. If Mitch can, please reach out. I hope you all connect with Mitch. He's a wealth of information and very generous about sharing the information. See you guys soon.